Welcome to The Explainer. I'm Dr. Chem, and today we're decoding the physical universe. Seriously, we're going to demystify the mathematics of chemistry and hand you the exact scientific toolkit you need to really understand the world around us. Think about it. Whether you're trying to measure the mass of a completely invisible, microscopic hydrogen atom, or you're calculating the sprawling, massive volume of the Earth's oceans, science demands a universal language. And that language? Well, it's built entirely on units, dimensions, and scientific notation. Without it, let's face it, we're literally just guessing.
Picture this. It's the middle of the night. You're taking care of a sick kid, and you're exhausted. The doctor prescribed a medication, and the label clearly says to give them 2 teaspoons every 6 hours. But you look in the pharmacy bag, and they've only given you this little plastic measuring syringe that's calibrated entirely in milliliters. You definitely don't have a kitchen teaspoon that you actually trust to be accurate. So what do? See, this isn't just some abstract math problem you do in high school. It's a real-world high-stakes scenario. It shows exactly how chaotic and, honestly, potentially dangerous our daily lives would be without a reliable, universal system of measurement conversions.
So, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the measurement problem, move into universal SI base units, tackle extreme scales with scientific notation, look at the rules of precision, and wrap it all up with mastering dimensional analysis.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the measurement problem.
Going back to our late-night crisis, a quick standard conversion factor totally saves the day here. It turns out 1 teaspoon is exactly equivalent to 5 milliliters. So your 2-teaspoon dose, that's going to be 10 milliliters. You fill up the syringe, give the medicine, and boom, crisis averted. But this really simple, everyday act of converting 1 unit to another, that is the absolute bedrock of all physical science. For these conversions to actually be reliable, not just in your kitchen, but in heavy-duty laboratories across the entire globe, humanity really had to agree on a single, unified, and foolproof measurement system.
Which brings us to part 2, universal SI base units.
Okay, check out this table. The International System of Units, which is documented by heavy-hitter authorities like the IUPAC Green Book and NIST, gives us these 7 fundamental building blocks that quantify literally everything in our world. It's wild to think about, but every single physical thing you can possibly measure eventually boils right down to these 7 base units. You've got the meter for length, the kilogram for mass, the second for time, the ampere for electric current, the Kelvin for thermodynamic temperature, the candela for luminous intensity, and my personal favorite in chemistry for sure, the mole for the amount of substance. It's just 7 pillars holding up the whole shebang of quantitative science.
Now, historically speaking, humanity's measurements were wonderfully, almost laughably arbitrary. I mean, for a really long time, the global standard for a kilogram was a literal physical chunk of platinum iridium metal just sitting securely in a vault in France gathering dust. But here's the thing, physical objects degrade, they get dirty, or they change ever so slightly over time. And science? Science needs perfection. So back in 2019, the SI system went through this really profound redefinition. We don't rely on those physical artifacts anymore. Instead, we use exact, unchangeable, fundamental constants of nature to define our units. So the meter, for instance, is now defined relative to the speed of light in a vacuum, which is exactly 299,792,458 meters per second. The kilogram? That's forever tied to the Planck constant. This gives us this perfectly stable, beautifully elegant system that works not just here on Earth, but across the entire cosmos. Of course, the physical universe is way more complex than just simple length and mass, right? When we want to measure things like velocity, or atmospheric pressure, or raw energy, we actually combine these base units, kind of like algebraic variables, to create what we call derived units. For example, if you take length, measured in meters, and you divide it by time, measured in seconds, you immediately get a derived unit for velocity, meters per second. Or take force. Force is measured in newtons, but a newton is really just a convenient, quick shorthand for kilograms times meters per second squared. The SI system is basically infinitely scalable, letting us create an unlimited number of these derived units, all built straight from those original 7 foundational blocks.
Okay, moving right along to part 3, extreme scales, and how we handle them with scientific notation.
To scale our base units to match the crazy extremes of reality, we use metric prefixes. We just snap these prefixes directly onto our base units to create decimal multiples or submultiples. So, a kilo means 1,000, making a kilometer exactly 1,000 meters. Milli means 1,000th, making a millimeter 1,000th of a meter. Pretty straightforward. But in chemistry and physics, we really push the boundaries. We can go from incredibly massive numbers like a quetta, which represents 10 to the power of 30, all the way down to a mind-blowingly small quecto, which is 10 to the negative 30th power. The entire scale of the universe is captured right here in these prefixes.
To really put this into perspective, imagine trying to write out the total volume of the Earth's oceans as a standard number. Our best estimates place the ocean's volume at roughly 1.5 times 10 to the 18th power kiloliters. If you actually had to write that out on a whiteboard, it would be a 15 followed by this exhausting, chalkboard-filling sea of zeros. It's super prone to error, it's incredibly hard to read, and honestly, it's just a massive waste of ink. That's why scientific notation is an absolute lifeline for us. It lets us express these massively large or microscopically tiny quantities cleanly and clearly without ever getting bogged down in a dizzying string of placeholder zeros.
Let's transition into Part 4, the rules of precision.
So, imagine you're looking at an analog thermometer, and the mercury falls exactly between the 55 and 56 degree marks. Well, we have a problem. The instrument is only graduated in 1 degree intervals. We can be absolutely certain the temperature is at least 55 degrees, right? But we're forced to mentally estimate that final decimal point. We kind of have to guess. Maybe it's 55.5 degrees. That last digit is always an estimate. And the harsh truth is, no measurement is ever absolutely perfect. Because every single measurement is bound by the reliability and the physical limits of the specific instrument being used. You just can't claim a level of precision that your tools didn't actually provide.
This is where significant figures come in. They enforce exactly how reliable our measurement truly is. The rules here are strict, but they're clear. All non-zero digits, always significant. Zeros trapped between non-zero digits, also significant. But trailing zeros, those can be dangerously ambiguous. Are they actual precise measurements, or are they just lazy placeholders? Writing numbers in scientific notation is literally the ultimate safeguard to eliminate those confusing, ambiguous zeros. For example, if you write 2.40 times 10 to the fourth, that zero at the very end isn't just taking up space. It is explicitly there to tell you, hey, this measurement is precise to exactly 3 significant figures. It's how the math protects the precision of your science.
And finally, let's dive into Part 5, Mastering Dimensional Analysis. The ancient Greek philosopher Epictetus once gave this great piece of advice. He said, "In every affair, consider what precedes and follows, and then undertake it." In chemistry, this ancient wisdom perfectly captures the exact mindset you need for unit analysis. You never, ever just start crunching numbers blindly into a calculator. No way. You have to meticulously plan your path, looking at the units you currently have and the units you ultimately want before you undertake a single calculation. Let's break this dimensional analysis process down step by step. First, you take a good look at your starting data. Second, you multiply by conversion factors. Now, these are just mathematical ratios that describe the true relationship between 2 units, like 60 minutes over 1 hour. Third, and guys, this is the real secret weapon here, you treat units exactly like algebraic variables. You set up your math so the unwanted units are on the top and the bottom of your fractions. This allows them to cleanly cancel each other out, leaving only the desired unit behind. If your units cancel correctly, it practically guarantees you're going to arrive at the correct numerical answer. It's like a self-solving puzzle.
The final, vital step in all of this is rounding off. And to do this correctly, we absolutely must determine if the numbers we used are exact or inexact. Exact values come from strict, unquestionable definitions, like the fact that 1 inch equals exactly 2.54 centimeters, or that there are precisely 1,000 meters in a kilometer. Because these are mathematically defined facts, exact numbers never ever limit your significant figures. However, inexact values, the ones that come from those physical, slightly flawed measurements you take in the lab, those always limit your precision. Your final calculated answer can only ever be as precise as your least precise inexact measurement. Let's actually map out a complex metric conversion using these exact rules. Let's say you want to convert 365 nanometers into kilometers. Because both your starting unit and your target unit have metric prefixes attached to them, the safest, most logical path is to build a 2-step conversion factor. First, we shift down to the plain base unit, converting those nanometers into meters. Then, we scale back up, converting the meters into kilometers. By writing out the entire skeleton of this equation and physically making sure the nanometers cancel out and then the meters cancel out, you are left with only kilometers. It is a beautifully logical, self-correcting system.
So, we've gone all the way from trying to measure out teaspoons of medicine in the dark to calculating the massive total volume of the world's oceans.
We've seen how just 7 simple base units, permanently anchored by the unyielding constants of the universe, can be scaled up or down by prefixes, rigidly tracked by significant figures, and manipulated flawlessly through dimensional analysis. If literally every physical thing around us can be quantified and understood using just this specific set of tools, what mysteries of the universe will you decode next? Think about it. Until next time, keep questioning and keep calculating.